Rainier Avenue Radio, your community radio station.
This is Cindy Bray, the host of Heartbeat Radio.
Ako po si Rolly Olimpa.
This is Paul Pearson, host of Star
This is Paul Schneiderman today on the 73rd edition.
Hey, y'all, welcome to
Rainier
Travelers
Avenue
Guide to
Radio.
Venus and Mars and Princess Robin.
I'm Risha Ferry Godmothers. You guys know me.
Your home for information about the impact of the
And
coronavirus.
amongst many things that's difficult about this virus is that it
Well,
prevents
it's
people
been
from gathering.
devastating.
So
There are really heartbreaking stories of people who have.
There isn't anyone that isn't impacted.
shutting our schools down, including all athletic programs.
Your firsthand accounts.
We got here just to check, and I found out that I was positive.
A lot of people who know me, I'm still the first person they know.
But it was almost like you were patient zero for South Seattle. Your stories of community coming together.
Partner very heavily with Tacoma Urban League, who is doing some amazing work in response.
We're doing things for small businesses. We're giving out loans for small businesses.
And so I think it's very important that we have leaders who feel
I mean, I cannot tell you we're calling 20, 30, 40
this
members.
crisis in our community. We've been working to address it.
Rainier Avenue Radio, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
DJ Dirty John.
Karen Z with Rainier Avenue Radio.
Hey, this is Circle Cool. Rainier Avenue Radio
RainierAvenueRadio.org. We got you covered. Global impact, global presence.
Broadcast. Welcome to Rainier Avenue Radio.world and our weekly coverage of the impact of the communities. Continuation of our series. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us again here. And then again, now we are aware of the fact that we are and more folks listening to that in 1.3
You're listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Check us out on social media. Facebook and Instagram, Rainier Avenue Radio.world, and on Twitter at Rainier Ave Radio.
Happy Friday and welcome. This is Brenda Charles-Edwards, the host of Seniors Matter. We're live every Friday at 12:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on Rainier Avenue Radio.world, your community radio station. You can also listen to us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch TV, and of course, our Rainier Avenue Radio app. Seniors Matter invites a variety of guests to discuss issues and activities that may impact the lives of older adults, their families, and the community. If you're interested in knowing what's the best gift you can give yourself and your loved ones, join me on Zoom for a group or individual session on end-of-life planning. Call me at 206-683-2636. Today, my guest is Bonnie Bizzell, Assistant Director of Community for Honoring Choices Pacific Northwest. Welcome to the show, Bonnie. It is so good, girl, to see you again. Hey.
Oh my God. Every time I see you, it just brings such joy to my heart and my life. So thank you for inviting me to be here again today.
I wouldn't have it any other way. I'm glad you could come.
And I loved the intro about how doing end-of-life planning is a gift for others. Way to just sort of let everyone know that it really is it's not only an important thing to do, but it actually benefits other people besides you. So
exactly. And I know that only too well because, my dad died 2 years ago and I tried to talk to him about this and he said, I'll deal with it when the time comes. On more than one occasion, he said that. And I just looked at him and I said, okay, Dad, knowing full well that was not going to be the case. And it wasn't. Fortunately, my mother and my brother and I were all on the same page. So things worked out well.
Good.
I'm telling you, it doesn't always work that way.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
So, as I said to my audience, you're with Honoring Choices Pacific Northwest. Why don't you give our audience some background information about Honoring Choices?
Sure. So Honoring Choices Pacific Northwest is a joint initiative between the Washington State Hospital Association and the Washington State Medical Association. And we're really centered on ensuring that everyone gets care that honors their values, personal values and goals at the end of life. And why it's really super phenomenal that the hospital and medical associations are doing this together is because at the end of life, you're probably going to deal with doctors and you may probably be in a hospital. So having both these big organizations saying this is important, that we honor individual preferences and individual choices at life is huge. We're a philanthropic nonprofit, which means that everything we do for free.
That's fantastic. And I remember when I met you a couple years ago, I was with AARP, the volunteer group that I'm with, and we came to Honoring Choices, and I was just really amazed at what you guys do.
Thank you.
As being a facilitator myself is just always I felt like I was a sponge, just soaking in everything that you were teaching us. I mean, people just don't understand. And I understand that there's a fear factor involved in all of this. So we just have to keep taking one small bite at a time, I guess, until we can get people to understand.
Well, and I think you're speaking exactly what we need to do and what we hope to do and what we try to do is to accept everyone where they're at, right?
Right.
And say, okay, so maybe you're not comfortable about talking about CPR or something big like that, but let's start small. Let's start with what brings you joy in your day-to-day life. Tell me about that. What do you really like doing? Because once I know what you really like doing, if I have to make decisions for you, I can put into the context, okay, Brenda or Bonnie or whomever really likes to do X, Y, and Z. If they get this treatment that I'm trying to make decisions for this person, will that help them be able to do X, Y, and Z? Because we know that brings them joy. So I totally get the fear about it. You know, I don't always like to talk about it, and it's my job, right? But just recently, I had to go in for a medical procedure, and I had to sit down and relook at all my documents and talk about it with my husband, and it can bring anxiety. It brought anxiety to me, and I'm notorious with my husband. I get a small cold and I'm like, okay, you remember what I want, right?
I love it. And that's how I guess we inspire people to have conversations, because you have to put it on a personal level. And what do they want? What do they like? What don't you like?
Yeah, that's really important too.
That's really
what
important.
Don't you want? What don't you like?
Exactly.
And use that. Like if there's, for example, if there's someone you don't want to visit you in the hospital, write that down.
Exactly.
If you really don't want something, it's important for people to know that as well.
I agree with you 100%. A number of years ago, my mother and I had the conversation on this, and she said, I don't want to be on life support. And I said, really? She says, no. She said, I've enjoyed my life, and I don't want to necessarily, suffer. But then from what I've understand, being on life support's not necessarily going to give me the quality of life that I'm used to having. And I said, well, Mom, you're right. You're a little older, and your chances are minimized. And fortunately, she doesn't have any serious underlying conditions, but still, yeah.
Well, and that is so, I think your conversation is a beautiful way to just, get the conversation rolling, talk about it, not being judgmental about what they say, and, exploring, be curious, not furious, right? So explore about why they're saying what they're saying. And if you understand it, like, the typical phrase of, I don't want to be burdened. Well, there's so many different ways that could look like. Is that just an emotional burden? Is that a physical burden? Is that a financial burden? Right. There are so many different ways to think about it. And so talking about, I don't want to be on life support, or, I've had conversations where people say to me, I don't want to do life support, except if people are trying to get to me to say goodbyes. That's a huge caveat right there. And then some people do want to be on life support. There's a whole range. And I think as we go forward, we just stay curious and really get to know the people we love. I mean, it's another way of getting to know those people that matter to you even more intimately.
Bonnie, I find that really interesting that they said that they would do life support if it gave people the opportunity to say goodbye.
Yeah. In fact, I used to say, and I still do, when people, sometimes we, play these games, like, do you want to have a long life, or, what's important to you, a full life or a long life? And to me, I find myself saying, well, that really depends. If most of the time, the most important thing for me personally is a full life. Mm-hmm. Will I be able to still enjoy playing with my dog or cooking meals or, a glass of wine or whatever. But if I felt like someone in my family needed to be able to travel to feel like they were around the bedside at that important moment, then, I would be open to whoever has to make that medical decision for me, and I've named 3 people, right, in different orders, to saying, this person really wants to say goodbye. So we'll allow that to happen. And so sometimes people really want that to make sure that there's a closure for other people, I suppose.
Right. More that than anything.
That's how I approach it.
Mm-hmm. I was just thinking about a really close friend of mine that died a couple years ago, and her daughter called me. Actually, she texted me and said, if you want to say goodbye to mom, you need to come to the hospital now. Mm-hmm. And my husband and I went up there, and she was in intensive care on a ventilator. And it really, I'm glad I got to go, but I felt that she wanted to talk to me, but she couldn't. And so I told her how much I loved her. And, yeah.
I'm holding you in my heart right now.
Thank you.
That was such a beautiful moment to share about how it can be, when you make that decision to say, keep me on life support until people can say goodbye, maybe it's important to talk with other people or figure out who those people specifically are, and trusting all of us in your audience with that intense private moment. And I understand exactly what you say when you say, I'm glad I got to go. And, because it is a moment, it is a moment of joy and sadness in a way, right? It's very bittersweet.
Yes, definitely bittersweet. So Honoring Choices has a variety of approaches, such as advanced care planning program, community engagement, physician education, which I think is really important.
Yeah, super important.
Advocacy, and a central repository. Now, I don't know, what is a central repository?
So the idea is that there's one place that everyone can access that's protected, obviously, right? So that no matter where you go, there's a place that the provider can get your document, or wherever you're at, if you change your document, there's a place you can upload it. And I want to be frank and honest with you. This is a nut we haven't been able to crack, because there are so many different systems and so many different communication ways. There are organizations that are helping fill that void, like the End of Life Collective, which is, I believe, the brainchild of this Michael Hebb, who designed Death Over Dinner, which is a conversation.
Oh, right. Yes, I've experienced it.
Yeah. And so there are ways of sharing, but honestly, still right now, the best way is to tell the people that matter to you and make sure that you're sharing with them what's important to you, what sort of decisions you want to be made. But not only those people that we think of as like the familial, whether it's, blood or chosen, right? There's a lot of people who have chosen families. But also those providers. So obviously, if you have a primary care provider, that's great. If you don't worry. If there are other places that you go typically for care, make sure that they have a copy of that and talk about it. And again, I'm going to go back to my personal experience. I had this procedure. I'm getting ready. The nurse says to me, she's typing, and have you created an advance directive? And I was like, yes. And I've turned it in when I checked in today. And she stopped. She absolutely stopped.
She wasn't expecting that.
She looked at me, because she's used to putting no, I'm sure she's used to saying no.
Yes.
And she said, really? I said, well, as a matter of fact, it's my job, so I better do it. But and then she came to me afterwards and said, I really need to do this. This is a nurse, right? Mm-hmm. I really need to do this. Can you help me do this? And I was like, yes, of course. Here's my information. So, whatever part on the path you are, whatever your profession is, you are exactly where you need to be, and you can move forward. And because it's so hard to share, to have a central repository, make sure you're sharing that. You're proactively, right now we're at the point where we have to proactively tell people and share it.
I got it. And I just thought of a story that I want to share with you. It's not really a story, it's true. But I did a class, on end of life planning, and my naturopath, who was also my PCP, mm-hmm. and her boyfriend and a couple other people were there. And we did her 5 wishes and mm-hmm. her advanced care directive. And it was just kind of funny because she had one, but, she didn't know where she had done with it. Anyway, so she says, okay, I'm going to do this again. So, we're all sitting at the table, and it was different for me because I was a facilitator mm-hmm. and she was the patient, so to speak, mm-hmm. Where it's normally mm-hmm. the role is reversed. So, but it was really enlightening, and it was enlightening for her too. And she's been ever since talking to other doctors and saying, okay, now do you have yours?
Exactly.
I just got mine again. But speaking
sometimes
of
the easiest place to start is with ourselves.
Yes.
Get that done.
Yes, definitely. So now, speaking of doctors,
yes.
and that part about the education for them, are physicians being trained to ask their patients what they want at the end of their lives?
Well, I have seen numbers for oncologists and other people, oncology, who have patients, who have serious diagnosis. Mm-hmm. And I've seen numbers from 6% all the way up to 37% have conversations with their patients. So I'm going to say no. I think a lot of times, and this is my personal opinion, I cannot represent doctors, obviously. It can be, and even when I started this as a facilitator, it can be a difficult conversation to broach because you may not know exactly what you're going to get, right? You may, right. There's this fear that I'm going to open up the floodgates, right? That was certainly my fear. And and I've just gotten better at, making sure I have a life raft just in case.
There you go.
And so one of the things that we do is we partner with medical organizations to help them throughout the organization at different stages. So we can help people learn how to have these conversations, and they don't have to be doctors. I'm not clinical. I have these conversations a lot. And or help them build their system so their system is more adept at being able to have these conversations and bill for them. So that they can get reimbursed by Medicare, because Medicare will reimburse. And then we also do things like we just rolled out, and we're partnering with Ariadne Labs, which is a great organization out in the East Coast, about serious illness goals of care conversations. And so we're actually really trying to get involved and help those who need to have these conversations with their patients feel more confident and competent in doing so that they're they're really helping those patients not only think about what's important, but, having those shared decision-making models where they're talking about treatments and what's important in their life and how they can make those decisions, so that the patients are actively involved with that not only the plan, but also their goals of care. Like when it becomes time at the end of life, what is important to them. So we're training physicians and social workers and a bunch of people. We're creating a teacher network so that they can go out and train people in how to have these. So that's one thing we're doing. The other thing we're doing is around Pulsed. So is it okay if I just take a moment to talk about Pulsed?
Yes, let's do. Go for it.
Okay. So Pulsed it used to be called Physician's Orders for Life-Sustaining Treatment. It's recently been renamed to Portable Orders.
I saw that. And
yes.
I said, what?
Yeah, because they are medical orders that are supposed to go with you everywhere. So they're supposed to be portable.
That makes sense. Okay.
So we have created a toolkit for physicians and other people to help them around creating a Pulsed if a person needs a Pulsed. And not everyone needs a Pulsed. A Pulsed was designed for the medically ill or the seriously frail, the medically frail or seriously ill. And so that's who it was designed for. It wasn't designed for your healthy person. So you could have someone who's 75 and healthy and really doesn't need a Pulsed. And you might have someone who's a teenager or younger who has a condition who really should have a Pulsed. And so a lot of people, I think in the past, have used Pulsed as a shortcut to advance for advanced care planning, as a shortcut to advanced directives. And so really understanding the purpose. Sometimes people want a Pulse because they specifically don't want things done, and it is a medical order. So that means when your emergency responders come to you and they see that, they can say it's like having a physician telling them what to do. And so, some people, but you have to talk to your doctor about it either way, because it has to be signed by a medical professional. So, and so we've got this toolkit that we've created to help. And I think it's really important for people, even if they're not a medical professional, to understand what the expectations and what the best practices are around using a Pulsed. It is, like an advanced directive, a voluntary document. So you should not be forced to do it for whatever reason. And so off of our website, it's just under the For Professionals section, there's a Pulse toolkit. I invite people in your audience to go and just take a look through it, because it explains how it should be used. It's done for the clinical person, so there's a lot of clinical ease in there, but it is for, it is good for us to know what we can expect so that we can advocate for ourselves and understand what we can advocate for.
And also, Bonnie, in the state of Washington, if you're found on the street unconscious, they're automatically going to do CPR on you.
Yep.
Unless they just happen to see you have a necklace on or something, or a bracelet or something that says, don't do it, but it's going to automatically happen.
Yeah. And unless actually they see those medical orders, they see that Pulsed form.
Right.
They may go.
But you can get it in a wallet size too, though.
Can you? I did not know that. Thank you for that.
One.
Oh, that's awesome. That's good to know. That's really good to know. I'm so
But they're
excited.
probably not going to be looking for it.
No. And that's a good point too. You have a lot of good Samaritans. I mean, the great thing about living in the Pacific Northwest is a lot of us are trained in CPR and responding. And a lot of us do. We actually do that.
Yes.
But this is for, like, if you're at home, typically that's where if it's at home and it's posted where they can see it, they'll do that. And then it travels with you as you go from place to place. So if you go to the ER, to the hospital, to a facility, a rehab facility, it follows you. And it's it doesn't necessarily mean they use it. They may mark it in your record, for example, your health record. But, at some point, if you're not able to make decisions for yourself, that's where that durable power of attorney for healthcare really comes into play and can be so important, because the Post is not a gray document. It's a bright green document. It's not a gray document. It's not going to have the nuance to really understand, if we have these different options. It has specific things and whether you want it or not.
Right. And by saying that, I'd like to say, do you need financial documents notarized? Are you a senior that needs documents read to you for clarity or completion? If so, call me, Brenda, at Black Orchid Notary, 206-683-2636. Tell me where. I'll meet you there. Now, my guest is Bonnie Bizzell, Assistant Director of Community, Honoring Choices Pacific Northwest. Advanced care planning is a process of thinking about and sharing your wishes for future health care. The good news is you don't have to have all the answers to begin, and you don't have to plan for every possibility. Right, Bonnie?
That is correct. Thank you.
Bonnie, we're going to be running out of time here, but I wanted to talk about, you have, don't you have some events coming up? There's some.
Oh, yes. Yes. So if you go to our website, every month we do a monthly public webinar. So, and we do it on Zoom. And so if you want to join us, we walk through, what advanced care planning is. We explain it in depth in the different documents, and we can even help you complete those documents. So if you go to the events section, I think it's under Connect, events and activities down at the bottom there. You can see everything that we have. It was in the drop-down menu, but you can see everything that we have, and or you can always just email us at info@honoringchoicespnw, like pacificnorthwest.org, and we will happily send you a list or a link to all the stuff that we're doing. But we have a lot of different things, and some of them are for partners and some of them are for the public, and we're happy to help people figure that out.
So if you miss a particular webinar, will it be repeated, or?
Yes, we do. We repeat the webinars at least every other month. We are looking at how we can condense it so we get everything covered in 1 month, but for right now, every other month. And if you're in the middle of it and you want to get it done, just reach out to us and we will have a one-on-one with you for free.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah. I love talking to people. I love helping people find out what's important to them and what makes them happy.
I know you do. I know you do. So what is Honoring Choice's vision statement?
Our vision is that everyone will receive care at the end of life, but also throughout life, that honors their values and preferences.
And that is so key. I mean, I can't even begin to say to my audience how important it is that you say what you want, and especially what you don't want, because you just never know what might happen. And, we came here not to necessarily stay. So we need to speak up, say what we want, what we need, and just hope that someone is listening to you. Now, when you pick someone for your healthcare directive, don't just pick one person, pick 3 people. Because you never know, you might need a backup.
Yep. That is so true. I have 3 people and I've talked to 3 people, and it was great. It was so fun because I got to share a piece of me with them and tell them what's important.
Right. This is Brenda Charles-Edwards, host of Seniors Matter. You can listen to us live every Friday on www.rainieravenueradio.world, your community radio station, YouTube, Facebook, Twitch TV, and of course the Rainier Avenue Radio App. We're here every Friday at 12:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Thank you to my audience for listening, and thank you to my wonderful guest, Ms. Bonnie Bizzell, the Honoring Choices Assistant Director of Community. Bonnie, we will talk soon.
Yes, we will.
rest of everyone else, be safe and live your life like it's golden. The coronavirus special edition is next. Bye, Bonnie. Have a wonderful weekend.
You